Yo, what is up, everyone? I've been reading a lot of comments on our AI and Copilot videos. And listen, some of them aren't subtle. Some of them say, stop selling Copilot. This channel has really fallen off. You're only promoting this because you work for Microsoft. I'm not going to pretend those comments don't bother me, because they do. Cube means a lot to me. This community means a lot to me. And your trust, most importantly, means a lot to me. But underneath some of those comments, I'm hearing some real questions. Can I trust this tool? Are you showing me something that actually works? Is Microsoft influencing what you're telling me? What happens to my job? And do the skills I've spent years developing still matter? Does all of that just become worthless because somebody can open Claude, Copilot, GitHub Copilot, type a prompt and get an answer? Here's what I think. AI isn't going to make all those years, and in some cases, decades of work worthless. But refusing to understand AI might. And yeah, I know that's a strong way to start this conversation. I know that may ruffle a few feathers, but some of you are genuinely concerned. Some of you are excited about where this thing is going. Some of you don't trust these tools at all. I was there when AI first started showing up everywhere. I was like, I'm not using it. So trust me, I really do get it. And honestly, I think some of those concerns are really truly valid. These tools get things wrong. Some of the experiences look amazing in the demo. Then you try the same thing in your actual environment with your actual data, and the experience is completely different. Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it gets it wrong, sometimes it behaves differently, and sometimes the feature just isn't ready for production prime time. Some of the promises are way ahead of the product. Cube has always been about showing you what works, telling you what I think, and being honest when something isn't ready or doesn't deliver the experience we expected. And I recognize what's happening right now because we've been here before. I watched so many tools show up. I watched people get so excited. I watched people resist. I don't want that, and they just walk away. I've watched people say, this is gonna change everything that came before it. Sometimes it does, and sometimes over time, the tool slowly becomes part of how we work. So when I say we've been here before, I'm not just talking about AI. I've been working for data a long time. And people chuckle since like the 1900s. And I remember when reporting was controlled by a small group of people. You had tools like SQL Server reporting services, SQL Server analysis services, Performance Point, and SharePoint. They were powerful tools, but usually in the hands of a small group of highly specialized people. And if the business wanted a new report, they submitted a request. And guess what they did? They waited. The process was just different. The access was just different. Then Excel started getting more powerful. Power Pivot showed up, boom, boom, boom. Power Query showed up. And eventually Power BI came along and opened analytics up to a much larger group of people. And every time something like that happened, people wondered whether the tools were becoming too easy. They wondered what would happen when more people got access to the data, whether users would build the right things, how organizations were going to manage all of this. Those concerns, they weren't completely wrong. We got some ugly babies. We got models that needed work. We got spreadsheets nobody can fully explain. Dashboards were everywhere and people had questions about them. But we also got something much bigger. We got more people solving problems. We got analysts who could understand the business, but had never been given access to traditional BI tools. We got people in finance, operations, sales, marketing, people who were much closer to the actual decisions. And now they could build things they've never been able to build before. I see that impact all the time. People will come up to me and say, Patrick, Cube changed my career. And listen, that never gets old. They'll tell me I was an operations manager and now I lead a BI team, or I was working in finance and now I'm building analytics solution for the entire organization. And that means a lot. I get a lot of chills. I have chills now because those people didn't lose the value of everything they already knew. Not at all. Their operational experience mattered. Their financial experience mattered. Their marketing experience, their understanding of the business mattered. The new tools gave them a way to apply that experience differently. Power BI didn't erase what they knew. It gave them a new way to use it. The value started moving away from simply knowing how to operate a tool, learning the clicks, which menu to open, which button to press. And now we're seeing the same thing happen with AI. The tools are becoming easier to access, more people can generate code, more people can write SQL queries, more people can have a conversation with their data. And yeah, when something you spent years learning suddenly looks so easy, it can feel like all of that experience is being reduced or minimized. Like anybody can open up a tool and do what you do. That's why I keep saying we've seen this before. The technology is different, the speed is different, the scale is different, but the questions people are asking, they feel very, very similar. When I first started using Power BI, I would go all the way back to the source and verify the results over and over again. I didn't fully trust DAX, these relationships in the semantic model, because I didn't really understand how they work. Over time, I learned how DAX work. I learned how the relationships work. I learned how the filter context and the row context work. And as my understanding grew, so did my trust. But the trust didn't come from Power BI producing the number. It came from me understanding how that number was produced. And for me, every new generation of tool works the same way. Some experiences are genuinely useful, and some of it needs more time to cook. But don't let time fool you into thinking Power BI showed up fully formed and ready for everything on day one. It didn't. I remember what Power BI was like in the beginning. I remember what it could do, and I remember what it couldn't do. We kept testing it, we kept learning it, the product kept improving. And eventually, it became part of how millions of people work with data. Think about the first time you wrote a complicated DAX statement and published it without going through the proper validation steps. Then someone challenged you on that number, someone from the business. That feeling right there. Hold on to that feeling. New tools don't remove that responsibility. They make that responsibility even more visible because the output shows up faster and with a whole lot of confidence. So when people tell me they have concerns, I don't immediately disagree with them. You should ask questions, be inquisitive, understand what data the tool has access to, understand the assumptions that it made, and know when the answers need to be reviewed by somebody who actually understands the business. That's not resisting change, right? That's not going against it. That's just doing our job. The challenge comes when those concerns become a reason to stop paying attention. There's a big difference between saying, this tool hasn't earned my trust yet, and saying, I don't need to understand what this new cycle is going to change. The first one is a professional judgment. The second one may cause you to miss an opportunity. You don't have to adopt every feature. You don't have to go out and try every tool. And you definitely don't have to pretend that every announcement is revolutionary. Either the new tool is going to solve everything or it has no value to us at all. Neither one is true. The real work is figuring out where it helps, where it doesn't, and where you still need somebody with experience to make the final call. Because the goal isn't to become a believer. The goal is to become somebody who can separate the value from the noise. We've seen what can happen when people recognize one of these cycles. A lot of Excel professionals took what they already knew, learned Power BI, and created entirely new career opportunities. And let's be honest, they got paid. They got paid. They didn't throw away their Excel experience. They built on top of it. They rose to the challenge of the next cycle. And I think we're standing at one of those new moments right now. And that brings me to the part I think a lot of people are getting wrong. Your value was never the tool. Your value was knowing what problem needed to be solved, knowing which data to trust, understanding the business well enough to recognize when a number didn't make sense. That's where experienced data professionals like you and me come in. We're the ones who should know how to challenge the output. Maybe you spend less time writing the first version of the query. Maybe you spend less time staring at a blank page. Maybe the tool gets you 60%, maybe even 70%. Maybe sometimes it gets you even further. Great. That's awesome. That gives you more time to focus on the part that really matters. Somebody still has to own the final answer. Somebody still has to be able to look at the result and say, no, we need to take another look at this. That's not less valuable. That's a higher level to me of responsibility. Your value isn't disappearing. It's moving from producing every single step manually to applying judgment across the entire process. And honestly, that's a much harder skill to automate. So what do you do with all this? Start small. Take one thing you already do and see whether a new tool can help you do it better. Then you look at the result and you validate it. You do what you do. You ask whether it makes sense. If it helps you move forward, carry that with you. If it doesn't, move on to the next thing. That's it. It's that simple. You don't need to use every new feature, and you definitely don't need to force a tool into a place where it doesn't belong. Your existing skills are the foundation. The new tools are an accelerator, and an accelerator is only useful when you know where you're trying to go. That's why I don't think the answer is to ignore what's happening. The answer is to stay curious and keep building the judgment that lets you tell the difference. Take what you know and apply it to what comes next. We'll see you in the cube.